Hello everybody, hope you're all having an absolutely wonderful day. You get this wonderful view of my hands today, but there's a very good reason for this. You see, I was sitting around today just kind of doing a little bit of DM prep for a module that I was reading. I'm not entirely sure why. I mean, I'm not actually DMing at the moment. I am currently playing in a group, playing Dungeons of the Mad Mage. But, I do enjoy DMing quite a lot, and so even when I'm not in the DM chair, I do enjoy kind of reading through published adventures and modules and kind of thinking, how would I run these things? I'm a bit of a nightmare player at the table, to be honest, as well, because it's exactly the same case. It's kind of like how, doctors are the worst patients, teachers are the worst students. You're always kind of thinking, oh, how would I do this if I were running it instead of you? That's me anyway. But this particular module that I was reading through is this one, Out of the Abyss. And I was reading through it, and I've got to say, I really, really like this module for a number of reasons. Primarily, there's the first reason, because it's one of those rare things where it goes all the way from level 1 to level 15, which is very, very high. There's not many published adventurers which go as high as 15. They normally kind of cap out at around 10 if they start at level 1, or even in the case of like Dungeon of the Mad Mage, which goes up to level 20, you're kind of starting at level 5. So it's quite unusual to go through such a wide range of levels. So that's kind of what attracted it to me in the first place. The other thing that I really like about it is that it kind of solves that eternal problem that a lot of modules have, which is that kind of question, which is like, why is the group sticking together? What is our goal? We don't even like each other. Why are we actually here? So for those of you that don't know what this book is about, the book basically starts you off as prisoners. You are in the underdark. You are prisoners to the drow who have captured you, and they're going to sell you into slavery. And so, of course, your very first goal, as it were, is to escape from prison along with the rest of the people in the party who are your fellow prisoners. And then, of course, your duty is to kind of get through the darkness and survive. And so not only do you have a very obvious reason for why the party should stick together, after all, there's safety in numbers, let's stick together and let's not split the party because we want to survive. You've also got a very clear goal, namely escape from prison and then get back to the surface even while you're being pursued. And of course there are other things that happen during the journey, and of course the story kind of grows in scope as you're going. But to start off with, in terms of just an initial hook, getting players to the table, it's one of the strongest ones that I've seen. This isn't just a case of, oh, you meet in a tavern one day and someone asks for your help. No, you're a prisoner. Escape. That's a great hook, And the other thing is that the Underdark itself, I think this module has some really, really great atmosphere in it. More than most that I've read. There's a really great feeling that kind of pervades everything, this feeling of dread, of madness that kind of goes through the whole thing, and it just everything that happens, it's just thick with this tension, and of course it is, like you're in the Underdark, this strange underground twisting, winding maze of passages that maddeningly twists on themselves, and some areas are too narrow to crawl through, and it's claustrophobic and it's pitch black everywhere, and you have nothing. You start the game with no inventory whatsoever. You've got to scavenge everything. You have to try and survive. It's literally like a survival horror, because you have no idea what's coming out from the darkness. Everything down here wants to kill you. It is there's no other D&D that I've found like that. And on top of this, it leans hard into these things. It's got things like madness is a thing. There's a really strong madness system in here, where the things that you encounter in the game, you kind of lose your mind. You know, things like crafting, foraging, mapping, navigating. Like, it's a really these are things that I think a lot of D&D campaigns just kind of hand wave away, like, oh yeah, we're not tracking rations on this one. We're not tracking encumbrance on this one. But this entire module basically says, let's make an entire game. Let's make a whole campaign out of those underutilized features of the system, and I find that really interesting as a hook. But there is one very big drawback to everything, and that is that this module, as I said, I mean, maybe you can see the problem right here. It goes all the way up to level 15. That is quite a thin book, considering how much stuff is in it. And as you might imagine, the upshot of this is that this book demands a lot from the DM. As I said at the beginning, I'm currently playing through Dungeon of the Mad Mage, and so I know from talking to the DM there, that module, everything is spelled out for you. It's a mega dungeon. Every room is spelled out, all the treasure is spelled out, all the monsters are spelled out, everything that happens. You've got very coherent maps on everything. You know where everything is, you know what's happening. There's details on what happens after the party have gone. So if this happens, then this happens. It's a really stress-free module to run. And so from a DM perspective, you just pick it up and you're just playing the game out of the book with minimal prep in comparison to this, because this, let me tell you, this is the complete opposite end of the spectrum. It demands a lot from you. And nowhere is that more obvious than here, the moment where you've escaped from captivity and you're now free in the Underdark for the first time. And you're thinking, where do we go? Where should we go? What direction should we as a party travel in? We want to get back to the surface, but how? And it's a very good question. And the book tries to play it a little bit like a sandbox, which is both a positive and a negative in this case. So what it gives you, first of all, you'll notice there's this very nice map here. I mean, is it a nice map? It's a map anyway, roughly showing, I guess, the Sword Coast, and we're underground right now. And I mean, for one thing, I have no idea why half of this map is here. Let me tell you now, having read through the book, nothing south of the maze engine here, nothing here appears in the entire book. Everything that happens in this whole module is north of here. So like, just turn it sideways and zoom in, guys. Anyway, whatever. So you've got all these different locations that you might want to go to. So let's kind of focus in on that. And you've actually got a very helpful little table to kind of talk you through how this might work. So you start off in this place, Velkenvev, which is here. And you might say, first of all, let's imagine I want to go from here to this Duergar city of Gracklestugh, which is one of the first places you kind of want to get to. And so helpfully, I've got a nice table here, and it tells me that if I'm starting from Velkenvev and I want to get to Gracklestugh, you can see that that is 28 days of travel. 28 days of travel through the Underdark. Well, that's nice and straightforward. You know, you can just say to the party, you travel through the Underdark for 28 days, and we just fade to black, and then you appear in Gracklestugh. Fine. Except it's not quite that simple. Because if we then turn a couple of pages, and we actually see how this is supposed to work. And you can see it says right here, each day of travel through the Underdark, check twice to see if the characters encounter anything unusual. Once while they are traveling, and again while they are camped or resting. Okay, that kind of makes sense. So you roll once when they're moving, you roll once when they're resting. You roll the d20 and you consult the random encounters table. And you can see up here, on a 1 to 13, nothing happens. On a 14 to 15, there's a terrain roll. On a 16 to 17, there's a monster encounter. On an 18 to 20, there's something kind of special that happens. And then, so let's imagine I got a terrain encounter, 14 to 15. I would then roll on the terrain table to see what exactly happens. So you're like, okay, well, I get what they're going for here. It's a little bit Excel spreadsheet simulator for me. There's an awful lot of tables here, which you kind of have to cross-reference, but I get the idea. I get what they're going for. But then you have that moment where you kind of step back and you're thinking, okay, I'm imagining sitting at the table. I am the DM. I have my party around me. I'm now expected to run this. How would that actually work? Because let us recall, the party say they want to go from Velkenverv to Gracklestug. That is 28 days. For each day of travel, I roll twice, once when they're moving and once when they're resting. That, my friends, is 56 rolls of a D20. 56 rolls. How does that work? I mean, am I expected to do each day one by one? And be like, let's see what happens today. Oh, no encounter. Let's see what happens today. Oh, no encounter. Let's see what happens today. Oh, there's a monster. Okay, or am I expected to roll 56 times in a row and then kind of bundle it all together? Because both of those sound awful. And let's also not forget that this is entirely random, and because of randomization, the party might have a brilliant time. They might also have an absolutely awful time because, 1 to 13, nothing happens. There's also a chance that they could roll the same thing multiple times. And let me tell you, not all of these terrain encounters are made equally. Some of them are brilliant, some of them are really bad. So for example, the Boneyard, it's literally just a room full of bones, and sometimes those bones come to life and attack you, and sometimes they don't. So I'm just imagining rolling 56 times, and I'm like, no, nothing happens, nothing happens, nothing happens. Boneyard! And the party's like, didn't we just have the Boneyard? And it's like, well, it's random. Nothing happens. Boneyard again. It could just be an absolutely awful experience. Hi, me from the future here. Yeah, so I forgot to mention actually that all of this is without even taking into consideration just basic mathematics. Like, probability curves are a thing. If you roll a d20 one time, there's no saying what number you're going to get. But if you roll a d20 20 times, 50 times, 100 times, 1,000 times, it's increasingly likely that you're going to end up basically with every single result on the d20 an equal number of times, right? So at that point, it's like, well, if I'm going to be rolling the d20 56 times, why don't I just throw the dice out of the window, so to speak? Don't actually throw dice out of the window, that's very dangerous, but just say, well, 56 rounds up to 60, and I'll just assume that the party encounter literally every single result on this table 3 times. Like, surely that's a more efficient way to do things, but then that completely negates the whole idea of it being a random experience and of every single journey through the Underdark being different. So in the long and the short of it is, there doesn't seem to be any neat and tidy solution here. I get what the designers were going for, but they just don't seem to have pulled it off in the rules as written delivery of things, which is where interpretation needs to come in. And this is, compounded by the fact also that you then have to factor in travel pace, right? Where there are 3 modes of travel. You can either go fast through the Underdark, that travels 8 miles per day, but you get a -5 penalty to your wisdom and you can't forage. You can go normal speed, or you can go slow, which means you get improved foraging and you can stealth. Alright, again, I get what they're going for, right? But now let's see, how would I actually work that out at the table in front of my players? Let's have a look at my my table again. From Velkenverv to Gracklestug is 28 days. Oh, but they're travelling fast, which is 8 miles per day. But it doesn't say 28 miles. It says 28 days, but they're going... Do you see the problem? That is not at all conducive to... Like, I don't want to be sitting at the table doing maths. I mean, it does say at one point, oh, you can deduct 20% from these scores or add 20%. I don't want to be doing that, right? You want it to be as simple and streamlined an experience as possible for your players. You don't want... Yeah, I get the idea that you want variety in what they encounter, but you don't want any risk that what they encounter is rubbish. You want there to be a nice mixture of things. You want it to be straightforward and easy for them to understand so that they can focus on enjoying the journey, enjoying in inverted commas, I guess, because, you know, they are being pursued the whole time and they're going mad and all these sorts of things. But, you know, they're having a fun game, and we're not just sitting there, as I say, rolling against tables for half of the session and consulting them, because that doesn't sound fun. Do you know? That is moving away from the purity of what is supposed to be this sinister survival horror. So, what is the solution? Well, in the next few videos, I'm going to kind of lay out what I've done to mitigate some of these problems. And hopefully you'll understand where I'm coming from as a DM, and also you'll have some cool resources as well, because everything that I'm going to show you that I make or that I homebrew, I will link in the video descriptions. And we're going to start off with this issue of travel. There we go. How's that for a transition? So you'll see that I've basically loaded up, this is Google Slides. I guess you could use any sort of spreadsheet slide software for this. And what I've done is I've posted in a portion of the map here, not the whole thing. I've really just zoomed in on that section that I was talking about earlier. So I'm really just zooming in on this section here, which is, to be fair, where the bulk of the initial part of the campaign is, the bit where you're just trying to escape from the Underdark. So this is the first kind of 6 or 7 levels of the game, is, spoiler alert, is how you get out of the Underdark. Then the remainder of the campaign is coming back into the Underdark to deal with the problems that are there. So just escaping the Underdark, this is. And these are the main areas which we kind of need. So what I've then done is I've basically created a hex grid. And you can see here that each of the hexes has been kind of given a unique identifier. So we've got, for example, E26, E27, E28, E29, E30, E31. Basically, the rows are letters and the columns are the numbers. So hopefully quite self-explanatory. It's a hex grid. Now, why have I done that, you might say? Well, it's simply because doing this allows me to overlay this onto a hex grid to maybe make the game a little bit more user-friendly, a little bit more understandable for the players at the table. So you can see here, this is the dark lake in the middle, and these kind of reddish areas. It's coloured red for an obvious reason. It's basically to say, like, at your low level, these areas, you're going to die, basically. But the party will probably come back at some point and go to these places. Aramikos is here. This is the labyrinth. This is the worm writhings, I think it's called. Fardrim, this is this area. Basically, they're areas that you do need to go to at some point during the campaign, but not at your low level, and that's why they're becoming coloured red. And so then you say to the party, well, where do you want to go? You are here at the moment. Which way do you go? And at this point, I will establish a couple of rules. And so first of all being the idea of travel pace. Now, I do like the idea of travel pace and all that it entails. If you recall, the ideas of, well, if you're going slow, then you can stealth. If you're going fast, you can't forage. These sorts of things. I like the idea of that because it gives the party decisions that they need to make. Also, they're being pursued, so if they're going slow, then their pursuers have a chance to catch up. If they're going fast, they might get away from their pursuers more quickly, but it's more dangerous for them. So there's those decisions they need to make. I like those ideas, and I want to translate it. But I don't like the idea of days. I want to get away from this notion of days as much as possible. We're underground, there's no sun, days are meaningless, right? You rest when you're tired. And with that in mind, yes, travel speed is a thing, but really what it's about is how often you can rest. And so the idea being, if you go at a normal speed, then you are allowed to short rest after each hex. short rest. And along the way, you will find designated camping spots. Let me just demonstrate this. So for example, let's imagine, so we're starting off R45, that's where we start off. Let's say they're going to go Q45, then they go P44, then they go O44, then they go O43, then they go N42, M42, M41, L40. There we go. That's an interesting route there. So you'll notice basically there's a hex grid hidden underneath this hex grid is how it works. And I don't know if anyone remembers the TV show Blockbusters. This is basically the idea. You've got to find a way to get from one place to another, and the way that you get there is entirely up to you. And along the way you can see you've got these various things. So if you get one of these like mauve squares with this little monster icon on it, that is a monster fight. It is the equivalent of, in that table here, rolling monster encounter. It's slightly more common here than it is in this table, but it's basically the equivalent. It's the equivalent. I'm not rolling dice. I've already rolled the dice ahead of time, and it's here. I don't need to sit at the table rolling 56 d20 because essentially I've already rolled, and under every single one of these hexes, every single one of them has something underneath it. Okay, that happens to be an empty square. Some of the squares are empty. Under every single square, under every single hex, there is something. You see? Oh dear me, I'm just bringing up empty ones for some reason. There we go. That's better. That's better. There we go. So that's the idea in principle. So as I say, every single mauve one is a monster encounter. Every single green one, this is a terrain encounter. What are the yellow ones, you might ask? A yellow one is a special encounter. In the module, we do have some special events which you may scatter about to add in some flavor, so some more interest along the way. So for example, there's a hook horror lair, oozing temple, there's the lost tomb. These are quite interesting things, and so anytime you land on a yellow hex, that's what that is. It's like a special encounter. And then finally you can see that we have here a campfire, and the campfire is, as you might imagine, a place where you are able to long rest. Short resting between each hex, long resting only on a campfire spot. If you are traveling at a slow speed, you may long rest after each and every hex. And if you're going at a fast speed, then you do not do any sort of resting except at campfire spots, and there you are doing a short rest. I hope that kind of makes sense, right? So if you're going fast, this is a short rest. If you're going a normal speed, you're short resting everywhere, and this is a long rest. And if you're going slow, you can long rest everywhere. And you probably would need to long rest here because like 3 monster encounters, you're going to be tired. But you can choose then, okay, we're going to go a bit slower, that's fine, but then your pursuers might catch you up because I'm rolling for them as well at the same time. That's the idea. So let's imagine if I'd gone a slightly different route here. Let's imagine if I'd gone this way instead. Then, as you can see, I would have had a very, very different experience through the Underdark. Much more terrain encounters here. What's that, you might ask? That's a dead end. Can't proceed this way, have to go back. So I go back this way, this way, this way, this way, and this way. There we go. So if I'd gone that way, I would have had 4 terrain encounters, 1 monster encounter, 2 long rests, and 2 of these specials. If I've gone this way, I've had 4 monster encounters, 1 terrain encounter, and 2 specials. But whichever way you go, you will have, there is still decisions to be made. The party still needs to decide, are we going fast? Are we going slow? How are we managing our resources? How are we resting along the way? Which way do we go? And that hopefully will add to the feelings of empowerment for the party. We're not just rolling dice and playing Excel spreadsheet the game. We are playing a game on a map, and so people can actually see what they're doing. And even though you've just gone through this thing, that's not even the end of things, because in addition to foraging and stealthing and all of these wonderful things, I would also be keen to give the party roles in during their journey. So someone in the party might be responsible for scouting ahead and looking for monsters and avoiding ambushing. Someone else in the party might be responsible for carrying all the stuff or looking after the light levels, all of these things. And one of the people in the party is responsible for mapping your journey. And this would be a very simple thing. It would probably be like a DC 15 wisdom check. If you're proficient in cartography tools, you get advantage on that throw, something like this. And if you successfully roll, then the hex remains uncovered forever. You have mapped the area, you know what is here, and it will always be a safe space. So if you travel back through this area in the future, it is safe, nothing will happen to you here, it is a resting point. But if you fail that roll, if you don't succeed the DC 15, it gets covered back up. And maybe you can kind of vaguely remember the sorts of things that you encountered, but you're not going to remember exactly which hex it was that you went on. You will have forgotten, you don't know what's here anymore, and so the next time you travel through, oh, boom, there we go, that's what was there. Do you see? So that's the idea. That's the first thing that I've created to kind of try and make this a more enjoyable game. And as a result of this, I think it creates a nice pace to things, because you can very easily say, right, escaping from Valkenburg, that's like one session, then this is like another session or two to get here, a session or two to get here, that's probably a session there, a session to get there, a session or two to get here. You can kind of break it down this way. You can do it by level as well, probably getting here. Escaping from Valkenburg, you go to level 2, you probably get to about level 3 by here, get to about level 4, 5, 6, 7, you escape, right? As I said, by the time you get out of the Underdark, you're level 7. Yeah, I would enjoy playing this, and I think I would enjoy running this at the table. But yeah, that's enough from me. Underneath this video, in the doobly-doo, you'll find a link to this, basically, this hex grid. Have a look at it, see how you feel. Tell me if there's anything that kind of does work or doesn't work along the way, and yeah, we can tweak it. Try it out in your own games, see if it works for you. And there will be other videos following this where I talk about some of the other things that I would hope to implement in the game to kind of, again, make it a bit more enjoyable as a game experience. But for now, I think that's everything. Yeah, comment, favourite, subscribe, all of that good stuff, and hopefully I will update you with another of these DM diaries in the next week or so. Take care. Bye-bye.